Think about the people you see every single day, the ones who blend into the background. The barista who makes your coffee, the bus driver who navigates the morning traffic, the person who cleans your office after everyone else has gone home. You see them, but do you really see them? Do you ever stop to wonder about the life they lead when they're not performing that task, wearing that uniform? What secrets do they hold behind their eyes? What incredible, unbelievable stories are hidden beneath the surface of the mundane? What if the quiet, unassuming janitor who cleans your building every night, the one you barely notice, the one you might even overlook, what if he was hiding something that would completely shatter your perception of him, of the world, of what's truly possible? What if his ordinary routine was just a carefully constructed facade, concealing a truth so extraordinary, so deeply moving, that you simply wouldn't believe it? And what would happen if that secret was suddenly, unexpectedly revealed? His name was Mr. Henderson. At least, that's what the little embroidered patch on his faded gray uniform said. To most people in the towering 20-story office building downtown, he was simply the janitor. He was a fixture of the night, a quiet, almost invisible presence who appeared after the last of the office workers had gone home, armed with his mop bucket, his broom, and his ring of keys. He was a man of routine, a creature of habit. Every night, 5 nights a week, he would arrive just as the sun was setting, punch in his time card, and begin his silent, solitary work. The office workers, the lawyers, the accountants, the tech developers barely noticed him. They were too busy with their deadlines, their meetings, their own lives. If they happened to be working late, they might offer a brief, tired nod as he passed, or simply pretend not to see him, lost in their screens. He was part of the background noise, the furniture of the building after dark. The man who emptied the trash cans, refilled the toilet paper dispensers, and kept the polished floors gleaming. Mr. Henderson was a small man, stooped slightly with age and years of physical labor. His hair was thin and gray, his face a road map of wrinkles. He had a quiet way about him, rarely speaking more than a few words if spoken to directly. He moved with a slow, steady rhythm, a man who knew his job and performed it diligently, without complaint or fanfare. He seemed content in his anonymity, in the predictable cycle of his nights. But beneath that quiet exterior, behind those tired eyes, Mr. Henderson held a secret so profound, so utterly unexpected, that if anyone in that building knew, their perception of him, and perhaps of themselves, would be irrevocably altered. It wasn't a dark secret, not a criminal past or a hidden fortune in stolen goods. It was something else entirely. Something beautiful. Something that blossomed in the quiet hours after midnight, when the building was silent and still. For years, the secret remained hidden. Who would suspect the janitor? He was the definition of ordinary, of unremarkable. He was the man you looked past, not at. But sometimes, if you paid close enough attention, if you lingered just a little too long after everyone else had left, you might notice something slightly out of place. A faint, unfamiliar scent lingering in the air on a floor that had just been cleaned. A melody, soft and fleeting, that seemed to drift from an empty office. A light left on in a room that should have been dark. Small things, easily dismissed, attributed to the wind, to the old building settling, to a trick of the light, or an overactive imagination. There was one person in the building who started to notice these things. Her name was Clara. She was a junior architect, often working late into the night on design proposals and blueprints. Clara was observant, with a quiet curiosity that went beyond the lines on a drawing. She had a habit of walking the halls, when her eyes felt strained from looking at the computer screen, stretching her legs, letting her mind wander. She had seen Mr. Henderson many times, of course, passed him in the hallway, heard the distant rumble of his cleaning cart. Like most people, she hadn't given him much thought. He was just a janitor. But then she started noticing the little things. One night, working late on the 10th floor, she smelled it. A faint, sweet scent, like flowers. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it was definitely there, mingling with the usual sterile smell of cleaning products. She looked around the empty office, puzzled. There were no flowers in the room. She dismissed it as her imagination. Another night, on the 7th floor, she heard it. A few notes of music, played softly, hesitantly. It sounded like a piano, but there was no piano on the 7th floor, or any floor for that matter. The building was offices, meeting rooms, a small kitchenette on each floor. No music rooms. She paused, listening intently. The sound stopped. Silence returned, thick and complete. She shook her head. Tiredness, she told herself. Working too many late nights. But the occurrences continued. A light on the executive floor, long after the last executive had departed. A door slightly ajar in a usually locked storage room. A faint dusting of what looked like glitter on a windowsill. Each incident, small on its own, began to accumulate in Clara's mind, forming a pattern, a question mark. It always seemed to happen on the floors Mr. Henderson had just finished cleaning, or was about to clean. Could he be connected? It seemed absurd. What would the janitor be doing with flower scents, piano music, or glitter? It didn't fit the image. The quiet, unassuming man with the mop. Clara's curiosity grew. She started lingering deliberately, pretending to be engrossed in her work. But her ears and eyes were open, paying attention to the sounds and sights of the building after dark. She started varying her routine, walking the halls on different floors, at different times, hoping to catch a glimpse, to find an explanation for the strange occurrence. She knew it was probably nothing, just her mind playing tricks on her. But the persistence of the little mysteries, the way that they seemed to orbit around the janitor's presence, wouldn't let her dismiss it entirely. There was something happening in this building after hours, something that went beyond the usual quiet of the night, and she was determined to find out what it was. What was Mr. Henderson doing when he thought no one was watching? What was the secret he was hiding in the silent, empty halls of the office building? The question hung in the air, unanswered, pulling her deeper into the mystery of the invisible man. Clara's investigation, though she wouldn't have called it that, became a quiet obsession. She started working even later, sometimes staying till past midnight, long after the last of her colleagues had left. She would sit at her desk on the 10th floor, the only light the glow of her computer screen, and listen. Listen for the distant rumble of Mr. Henderson's cart, the soft squeak of his shoes on the polished floor, the faint sounds that might betray his presence. She learned his route, the floors he typically cleaned on certain nights. She would make excuses to be on those floors, pretending to need something from the printer or the supply closet, hoping to catch him in the act, to see what he was doing that was causing these strange little anomalies. But whenever she encountered him, he was just the janitor, pushing his cart, wiping down surfaces, his face impassive, his movements slow and deliberate. He would offer that brief, tired nod, and she would return it, her mind buzzing with unanswered questions. The strange occurrences continued, becoming slightly bolder, harder to dismiss. One night, she found a single perfect rose placed on the reception desk on the 3rd floor. No vase, no water, just the rose, its petals a deep, velvety red, its scent filling the air. It was beautiful, but utterly out of place. Who would leave a rose here, after hours? Another time, she found a small, intricately folded origami bird on the edge of her own desk. It was delicate, made from a piece of scrap paper, but crafted with surprising skill. She picked it up, turning it over in her fingers. It was undeniably lovely. But why? Who would leave it there? The piano music returned, clearer this time. She was on the 5th floor, walking towards the elevators when she heard it. A simple, haunting melody, played with a hesitant touch, as if by someone learning, or perhaps someone playing from memory after a long time away from the keys. It was coming from somewhere on that floor. She crept closer, her heart pounding. The sound seemed to be coming from the large conference room at the end of the hall. She edged towards the door, her hand reaching for the handle, her mind racing. Was Mr. Henderson in there, playing the piano? It seemed impossible. But the music was real, undeniable. She pushed the door open slowly, peering into the dimly lit room. The conference room was empty. The large polished table gleamed in the faint light from the hallway. There was no piano. No one was there. The music stopped abruptly as the door opened, leaving only silence. Clara stood in the doorway, her breath catching in her throat. She hadn't imagined it. She knew she hadn't. But where had the music come from? The mystery was deepening, becoming more perplexing. It was as if the building itself was playing tricks on her, or as if there was some unseen presence moving through the halls at night, leaving behind these strange, beautiful clues. And the only common denominator was Mr. Henderson. She started watching him more closely, trying to discern something, anything, in his demeanor that might hint at a hidden life. But he remained a closed book, his face revealing nothing, his routine unwavering. He was the invisible man, moving through the shadows, performing his duties. One night, driven by a growing sense of urgency, a need to understand, Clara decided to do something she knew was probably a bad idea. She decided to follow him. She waited until she heard his cart moving down the hallway on her floor. Then she quietly slipped out of her office, staying in the shadows, keeping a safe distance. She followed the faint sounds of his progress down the hall towards the stairwell. She heard the heavy door of the stairwell open and close. She waited a moment, then followed, pushing open the door and stepping into the concrete stairwell. The sounds of his movement were clearer here, echoing in the enclosed space. She could hear his footsteps, slow and steady, descending the stairs. She followed, her own footsteps light and cautious, trying not to make a sound. Down one flight, then another. She tried to guess where he might be going. To the basement? To a different floor? She followed him for several floors, her legs starting to ache. He didn't seem to be heading for the basement. He stopped on the 5th floor, the same floor where she had heard the piano music. Clara paused on the landing just above the 5th floor, peering down through the metal railing. She saw him push open the door to the 5th floor and disappear into the hallway. She waited, listening. She heard the faint sound of his cart being pushed down the hall. Then, silence. She crept down the last flight of stairs and cautiously pushed open the door to the 5th floor. Just a crack, and peered out. The hallway was empty. She heard the distant sound of his cart again, further down the hall. She waited until the sound faded, then she slipped out of the stairwell and into the hallway, moving silently. She followed the direction the sound had come from, her heart pounding. She reached the end of the hall, near the conference room. The door was closed. She listened. Silence. Had he gone inside? She approached the conference room door, her hand trembling slightly. She reached for the handle, hesitated for a moment, then pushed it open. The room was dark, empty, just like before. Frustration and a sense of anticlimax washed over her. She had followed him, had been so sure she was about to discover his secret, and she had found nothing. Just an empty room. She sighed, turning to leave. As she turned, her foot scuffed against something on the floor near the doorway. She looked down. Lying on the polished floor was a single white feather. Not a bird feather, but a soft downy feather, like from a costume or a prop. It seemed to shimmer faintly in the dim light. Clara picked it up, turning it over in her fingers. A feather? What did a feather have to do with anything? It was another piece of the puzzle, another strange, inexplicable clue. She looked around the empty conference room again, a sense of unease settling over her. There had to be an explanation for all of this. The smells, the music, the objects, the feather. And it had to be connected to Mr. Henderson. But how? What was the quiet janitor hiding that involved roses, origami, piano music, and feathers? The mystery was deepening, becoming more elaborate, more fantastical. And Clara was determined to uncover the truth, no matter how unbelievable it might be. The tension was building, the questions multiplying. What was the janitor's secret? And what would happen when it was finally revealed? Clara couldn't shake the image of the feather, the feel of its softness between her fingers. It was such a strange, out-of-place object to find in an office building. It felt almost magical. The word lingered in her mind, a jarring contrast to the mundane reality of her surroundings. Magic? In an office building? It was absurd. And yet, the rose, the origami bird, the phantom piano music, they all had a certain whimsical, almost fantastical quality to them. She spent the next few days distracted at work, her mind replaying the events of that night, trying to find a logical explanation. Maybe Mr. Henderson had a hobby. Maybe he was a secret artist, a musician, a magician. The ideas seemed far-fetched, completely at odds with his quiet, unassuming demeanor. But what else could explain the strange occurrences? She decided she needed to be more direct. Following him hadn't worked. She needed to find out where he was spending his time after he finished his cleaning duties on a particular floor. She needed to find the source of the music, the origin of the objects. She remembered the light she had seen on the executive floor, the one that should have been dark. The executive floor was usually the first one Mr. Henderson cleaned. Maybe his secret activities happened there before he moved on to the other floors. That night, she stayed late again, her heart filled with a mixture of apprehension and determination. She waited until she heard the familiar sounds of Mr. Henderson's cart, entering the elevator and ascending to the executive floor, the 20th floor. She gave him some time, letting him begin his work. Then she took the stairs, climbing the 19 flights, her legs burning, her breath coming in ragged gasps. She needed to approach silently, to avoid alerting him to her presence. She reached the 20th floor landing, the air thinner here, the silence more profound. She cautiously pushed open the stairwell door, just a crack, and listened. She could hear the faint sounds of Mr. Henderson's cleaning, the swish of his mop, the clink of bottles in his cart. He was definitely here. She waited, listening to the rhythm of his work. He seemed to be moving systematically through the offices. She needed to find where he was going after he finished cleaning. She waited until the sounds of his cleaning seemed to fade, moving further down the hall. Then she slipped out of the stairwell and into the hallway, her movements slow and deliberate. The executive floor was dimly lit, the only light coming from emergency exit signs and the faint glow of the city lights through the large windows. She crept down the hallway, peering to the open doorways of the executive offices. Empty, pristine. She could see the faint, wet streaks on the floor where he had just mopped. She reached the end of the hall, near the corner office, the largest one, presumably belonging to the company's CEO. The door was closed. She listened. Silence. She moved past the office, towards the other side of the floor. There were a few more offices, a small reception area, and then a door she had never noticed before. It was a plain, unmarked door, set into the wall, almost blending in. It looked like a utility closet, perhaps, or a service entrance. But something about it felt different. It didn't have the standard handle of the other doors. It had a simple, round knob, and it looked older. Clara felt a prickle of intuition. This was it. This was where the secret was hidden. She approached the door, her heart hammering against her ribs. She reached for the knob, her hand trembling. It was cold metal. She turned it slowly. Locked. Disappointment washed over her, sharp and immediate. Of course, it was locked. Why would a secret be left out in the open? She leaned her head against the door, listening. Nothing. Just the faint hum of the building's ventilation system. She was about to turn away, defeated, when she heard a faint sound from behind the door. A soft, rustling sound. Like paper or fabric. And then a low, melodic hum. Clara froze, her ears straining. The hum was beautiful, resonant, unlike anything she had ever heard before. It wasn't a human voice. It was a sound of pure creation, of something coming to life. The sound stopped as suddenly as they had begun. Silence returned, leaving Clara standing in the dark hallway, her mind reeling. There was definitely something behind that door. Something alive. Something hidden. She knew she shouldn't try to get in. It was trespassing, a violation of privacy. But her curiosity, her need to understand, was overwhelming. She had to know what was behind that door. What was Mr. Henderson hiding? She thought about the rose, the origami bird, the feather, the phantom music. They all pointed to something extraordinary, something beautiful and unexpected. Could it all be connected to what was behind this locked door? She looked around the empty hallway, her gaze falling on Mr. Henderson's cleaning cart, which he had left parked near the elevators. His ring of keys hung from the handle. A daring, reckless idea formed in her mind. She could borrow his keys. Just for a moment. Just long enough to open the door, to see what was inside, to finally solve the mystery. It was a terrible idea. She could get caught. She could lose her job. She could face legal consequences. But the pull of the unknown, the need to understand the strange occurrences and the janitor's secret, was too strong to resist. She crept towards the cleaning cart, her movements silent and deliberate. She reached for the ring of keys, her hand shaking. The metal felt cold and heavy in her palm. There were dozens of keys on the ring, all shapes and sizes. Which one would open that door? She knew she was taking a huge risk, but she couldn't turn back now. She had come too far. The mystery of Mr. Henderson and his hidden life had consumed her thoughts, her nights. She had to know. She took a deep breath, the cold metal of the keys a tangible reminder of the line she was about to cross. She turned and walked back towards the unmarked door, the ring of keys jingling softly in her hand, the sound impossibly loud in the silent building. She reached the door, her heart pounding. She looked down at the keys, then back at the plain, unassuming door. What wonders, what secrets lay hidden behind it? The moment of truth had arrived. What would she find when she finally opened the door and stepped into Mr. Henderson's hidden world? The tension was almost unbearable. Clara stood before the locked door, the heavy ring of keys in her hand. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic drumbeat in the silent hallway. Every instinct screamed at her to stop, to put the keys back, to walk away and pretend she had never noticed the strange occurrences, had never followed Mr. Henderson, had never found this mysterious door. But the pull of the unknown, the burning need to understand the secret that the quiet janitor was hiding, was too strong to resist. She had come this far. She had to know. With trembling fingers, she began trying the keys, one by one. Each click of the lock, each key that failed to turn, amplified the tension, the risk. She was acutely aware of the silence of the building, of the possibility that Mr. Henderson might finish his work and return to his cart at any moment. She worked quickly, her eyes darting down the hallway, listening for any sound of his approach. Key after key, disappointment after disappointment. Would she find it? Or would the risk be for nothing? Just as a wave of despair began to wash over her, she inserted a small, tarnished brass key into the lock. She turned it slowly. Click. The lock disengaged. Clara's breath hitched. It was open. The door to Mr. Henderson's secret world was finally unlocked. She hesitated for a moment, her hand on the doorknob. What would she find inside? Something mundane? Something dangerous? Or something truly extraordinary? Something that would explain the roses, the origami, the music, the feather? Taking a deep breath, she turned the knob and pushed the door inward. The hinges creaked softly, a loud sound in the stillness. She stepped inside, pulling the door shut behind her, plunging the small space into near darkness. She fumbled for her phone, turning on the flashlight app, its beam cutting through the gloom. The space was much larger than she had expected for a utility closet. It seemed to stretch back, a long, narrow room, and it was filled with things. Not cleaning supplies, not storage boxes. The beam of her flashlight swept across the room, revealing a sight that made her gasp, a sound swallowed by the silence. The walls were covered, from floor to ceiling, with intricate, vibrant murals. Not painted, but somehow woven, created from countless tiny pieces of colorful fabric, paper, thread, even discarded bits of plastic and metal, all meticulously arranged to form breathtaking images. There were scenes of nature, of bustling cityscapes, of fantastical creatures that seemed to leap from the walls. The level of detail, the artistry, was astounding. It was like stepping into a hidden gallery, a secret world of art. And that wasn't all. As her flashlight beam moved further into the room, she saw them. Suspended from the ceiling by thin wires were dozens, maybe hundreds, of delicate, intricate creations. Origami birds, their paper wings catching the light. Small, whimsical sculptures made from wire and found objects. And figures. Human figures, crafted with incredible skill, their bodies made from fabric, their faces painted with expressive detail. They looked like puppets or dolls, but they were more than that. They were characters. In the center of the room, bathed in the soft glow of a single bare light bulb hanging from the ceiling, was a small, makeshift stage. It was simple, constructed from cardboard boxes and draped with dark fabric. And on the stage, arranged as if in the middle of a performance, were some of the figures. A small, detailed cityscape backdrop stood behind them. Clara moved further into the room, her feet silent on the dusty floor. She felt a sense of awe, of wonder, so profound it brought tears to her eyes. This was Mr. Henderson's secret. He wasn't just a janitor. He was an artist, a storyteller, a puppeteer. She looked at the figures on the stage. They were posed in a dramatic scene, their fabric limbs arranged to convey emotion, action. She saw the feather she had found on the 5th floor tucked into the hand of one of the figures, a small white accent against its dark costume. The origami bird on her desk. It was identical to the ones hanging from the ceiling. The rose on the reception desk. She saw a small vase with a few wilting roses on a nearby shelf, next to containers of fabric scraps and spools of thread. The pieces of the puzzle were falling into place, revealing a picture far more beautiful and unexpected than she could have ever imagined. The phantom piano music. Maybe he played a small portable keyboard in here. The faint smells. The materials he used. The glue. The paint. The fabric. This was his hidden world. This was where the quiet janitor came alive, where he poured his creativity, his passion, into these incredible works of art. He wasn't just cleaning the building. He was transforming a hidden corner of it into a sanctuary of imagination. She reached out, her hand hovering over one of the figures on the stage. It was a small old man, his face etched with wrinkles, his clothes patched and worn. He looked familiar. She looked closer. The figure bore a striking resemblance to Mr. Henderson himself. Tears streamed down Clara's face now, silent and unstoppable. She understood. This wasn't just a hobby. This was his life, his passion, his way of expressing himself, of creating beauty in a world that might have otherwise overlooked him. He was the invisible man by day, the quiet janitor, but by night, in this hidden room, he was a magician, a creator of worlds. Why the secret? Why hide such incredible talent? Perhaps he was shy. Perhaps he didn't think his art was worthy of being seen. Perhaps he simply found solace and freedom in creating in secret, away from the judgment and expectations of the world. As she stood there, surrounded by the vibrant murals and the silent figures, a profound sense of respect and admiration for Mr. Henderson filled her. He wasn't just the janitor. He was an artist of extraordinary talent, a man with a rich hidden inner life. She heard a sound from the hallway. Footsteps. Slow, steady, familiar footsteps. Mr. Henderson. He was coming back. He was coming back to his secret room. And he would find her here. Panic flared, sharp and hot. She had been so caught up in the wonder of the discovery that she had forgotten the risk. She was a trespasser, caught red-handed in his most private space. What would he do? Would he be angry? Would he call security? Would he lose his job because of her intrusion? She looked around frantically. There was nowhere to hide in the small room. The footsteps were getting closer. They stopped just outside the door. Clara's heart pounded. This was it, the moment of confrontation. The secret was revealed, but now the consequences of her actions were about to unfold. What would Mr. Henderson say? How would he react to finding someone in his hidden world? The tension was unbearable. The door creaked open, and Mr. Henderson stepped inside, his figure silhouetted against the dim light of the hallway. He saw Clara standing there, illuminated by the beam of her phone's flashlight, surrounded by his murals and his figures. He froze. His eyes, usually tired and downcast, widened in surprise. His mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. He looked from Clara to the room, his gaze filled with a mixture of shock and something else. Something vulnerable. Clara stood frozen, unable to speak, the flashlight trembling in her hand. The silence stretched, thick with unspoken questions and the weight of the revealed secret. Finally, Mr. Henderson spoke, his voice a low whisper, filled with a quiet sadness. You found it." Clara nodded, tears still silently streaming down her face. "Mr. Henderson, I didn't mean to intrude. I saw the things. The rose, the feather, I heard the music. I was curious. I had to know." He looked around the room, his gaze lingering on the murals, the figures. A sigh escaped his lips, a sound of resignation. "My secret," he said, his voice barely audible. "Now it's not a secret anymore." Clara stepped forward, lowering her phone. It's incredible, Mr. Henderson," she said, her voice filled with genuine awe. "It's beautiful. I had no idea." He looked at her then, his eyes searching her face. You like it?" he asked, a hint of surprise in his voice. "Like it?" Clara repeated, a small watery laugh escaping her lips. "Mr. Henderson, it's magnificent. It's art, real art." A faint blush rose in his cheeks. "Just something I do," he mumbled, looking away. "To pass the time." "To pass the time?" Clara exclaimed, gesturing to the room around them. "This is more than passing the time. This is your passion, your talent." He was silent for a moment, Then he walked further into the room, his shoulders slumping slightly. He stopped in front of the stage, looking at the figures. "I started a long time ago," he said, his voice gaining a little strength. "When I was young, I always loved making things, telling stories. But life happens. You have to work to survive. There wasn't time or space." He gestured around the hidden room. "I found this space," he said, "years ago. It was just a storage room filled with junk. I cleaned it out little by little, made it my own, my sanctuary." He looked at Clara. "I work at night," he said. "When the building is empty, it's quiet. I have the time. I have the space here." He explained how he collected discarded materials from around the city: fabric scraps, bits of wire, old paper, broken toys. He would bring them back to his hidden room and transform them. The murals were made from recycled materials, painstakingly pieced together. The figures were crafted from fabric and wire, their costumes made from scrap. He would create stories for them, little plays that he would perform for himself on the makeshift stage. The music she had heard was from a small battery-powered keyboard he kept in the room. "The rose," he said, a faint smile touching his lips, "was from a bouquet someone threw away. It was still beautiful. I didn't want it to go to waste. The origami bird. I made it during a break. The feather. It was part of a costume I was working on." He had been leaving the little objects, the rose, the bird, the feather, as small acts of quiet rebellion, of beauty in a sterile environment. He never expected anyone to notice, let alone connect them back to him. "I never showed anyone," he said, his voice soft. "My art, my stories. I didn't think anyone would care or understand." "We would care, Mr. Henderson," Clara said, stepping closer. "We would understand. This is incredible. You have a gift." He looked at her, his eyes filled with a mixture of disbelief and hope. "You really think so?" "I know so," Clara said firmly. "This is amazing. The detail, the creativity. It's truly special." She thought about all the years he had been working in this building, moving through the shadows, his incredible talent hidden away in this secret room. It was heartbreaking and inspiring at the same time. "Mr. Henderson," Clara said, a new idea forming in her mind. "Your art. It needs to be seen." He shook his head. No. It's just for me." "But it's too good to keep hidden," Clara insisted. "People would love this. They would be amazed." She looked around the room, her architect's mind already working. "This space, it's perfect. It could be a gallery, a secret gallery hidden in plain sight." Mr. Henderson looked at her, a flicker of something she couldn't quite read in his eyes. "Fear? Hope? I know it's a lot," Clara said, "and it's your secret. But what if you shared it? Just with a few people at first. Maybe we could show some of your murals, some of your figures right here in the building. Not in this room, of course, but maybe in the lobby or on one of the empty floors." Mr. Henderson was silent for a long moment, considering her words. The idea seemed to be both terrifying and exhilarating to him. "I don't know," he said finally, his voice hesitant. "I'm just the janitor." "You're not just the janitor, Mr. Henderson," Clara said, her voice gentle but firm. "You're an artist, and your art deserves to be seen. It deserves to bring beauty and wonder to the world, just like it brought to me tonight." She looked at him, a hopeful smile on her face. "What do you say, Mr. Henderson? Are you ready to share your secret with the world?" The question hung in the air, an open loop, a pivotal moment in Mr. Henderson's life. Would he remain the invisible man, his incredible talent hidden away? Or would he step out of the shadows and allow his art to shine? The emotional stakes were high. His vulnerability, his fear of judgment, his lifelong secret, all hinged on his answer. What would he decide? Mr. Henderson looked at Clara, then around his hidden room, his gaze lingering on the murals, the figures, the stage. He had spent years in this space, pouring his heart and soul into his creations, finding solace and purpose in the quiet hours of the night. It was his sanctuary, his secret world. The thought of revealing it, of exposing his art and himself to the world, was terrifying. But Clara's words, her genuine awe, her belief in his talent, they had touched something deep within him, a flicker of a long dormant dream. He thought about the rose, the origami bird, the feather, his small anonymous attempts to inject a little beauty, a little wonder, into the sterile environment of the office building. Maybe, just maybe, there were people who would appreciate his art, who would see beyond the uniform, beyond the job title, to the person he truly was. He took a deep breath, a slow, shaky inhale. I don't know, Clara, he said, using her name, the first time he had done so. It felt significant, a small step out of the shadows. It's a lot to think about. I know, Clara said gently. Take your time. There's no pressure. But please think about it. Your art is special, and I truly believe it could touch people. They talked for a while longer, sitting on overturned buckets in the hidden room, surrounded by the silent figures and the vibrant murals. Mr. Henderson told her stories about some of his creations, the inspiration behind them, the discarded materials he had transformed. Clara listened, fascinated, her respect and admiration for the quiet janitor growing with every word. They agreed not to tell anyone about the hidden room, about his secret, for now. The decision of whether or not to share his art with the world was his alone. Clara promised to keep his secret safe, to wait for him to decide if and when he was ready. In the following weeks, a subtle shift occurred in the dynamic between Clara and Mr. Henderson. Their brief encounters in the hallway were no longer just polite nods. They would exchange a few words, a small smile. Clara would sometimes see him in the distance and offer a wave, which he would shyly return. The invisible man was slowly becoming visible, at least to her. Clara, meanwhile, couldn't stop thinking about his art, about the hidden gallery on the 20th floor. She found herself looking at the discarded objects around the city with new eyes, wondering what beauty Mr. Henderson could create from them. She started leaving small bags of fabric scraps, interesting pieces of paper, or bits of colorful wire near his cleaning cart, anonymously, hoping he would find them. She never saw him take them, but sometimes, a few days later, she would notice a new detail in one of the murals. A new figure on the stage, incorporating the materials she had left. The open loop of whether Mr. Henderson would reveal his secret hung in the air, adding a layer of anticipation to Clara's nights at the office. Would he take the leap? Would he share his art with the world? One evening, as Clara was packing up to leave, she saw Mr. Henderson standing near his cart in the lobby. He wasn't cleaning. He was just standing there, looking around the vast empty space. She walked over to him. "Mr. Henderson," she said softly. He turned, a nervous look on his face. In his hands, he held one of his figures. It was the figure of the old man, the one that resembled him. He held it carefully, almost protectively. "Clara," he said, his voice a little shaky. I've been thinking." Clara's heart leaped. "Yes?" He looked down at the figure in his hands, then back up at her. I think maybe you're right." Clara waited, holding her breath. Maybe it's time," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Time to let them see." A wave of excitement and emotion washed over Clara. He was going to do it. He was going to share his secret. "Oh, Mr. Henderson," she said, a wide smile spreading across her face. "That's wonderful." He looked nervous, but there was also a flicker of something else in his eyes now. anticipation, a fragile hope. Where? He asked, looking around the imposing lobby. How? Clara's mind raced. She had an idea. A perfect idea. The building had a large unused atrium on the ground floor, a space that was rarely used except for occasional corporate events. It was bright, spacious, and visible to everyone who entered the building. It would be the perfect place to showcase Mr. Henderson's art. The atrium, she said, her voice filled with enthusiasm. Mr. Henderson, we could set up an exhibition in the atrium. We could display your murals, your figures. We could tell your story. Mr. Henderson looked at the atrium, then back at Clara, a look of disbelief on his face. An exhibition? For me? Yes, for you, Clara said. Your art deserves it. There were logistical hurdles, of course. They would need permission from the building management. They would need to figure out how to transport the art from the 20th floor hidden room. But Clara was an architect. She knew how to plan, how to get things done. And she was determined to make this happen for Mr. Henderson. The process of getting permission was surprisingly smooth. When Clara approached the building manager with the story of the janitor's hidden art, she was met with skepticism at first. But then, as she showed him photos she had secretly taken of the murals and figures, his skepticism turned to astonishment, then to excitement. The idea of a hidden artist in their own building, a janitor with such incredible talent, was a unique and heartwarming story. The building management agreed to allow the exhibition in the atrium, seeing it as a way to add a touch of humanity and wonder to the sterile corporate environment. The challenge then became transporting the art from the hidden room. The murals were large and fragile, the figures delicate. Clara worked with Mr. Henderson, carefully documenting each piece, planning the logistics of the move. It was a slow, painstaking process, but filled with a sense of purpose and shared excitement. As they carefully dismantled the hidden gallery, packing away years of Mr. Henderson's secret creations, Clara felt privileged to be a part of this moment, this transition from shadows to potential spot. The day of the exhibition opening arrived. The atrium was transformed. Mr. Henderson's vibrant murals adorned the walls, filling the space with color and life. His figures were arranged on pedestals, telling silent stories with their expressive forms. A small sign near the entrance read, "The Hidden World of Mr. Henderson, the building's artist." Clara stood to the side, watching as people entered the atrium, their faces registering surprise, then awe, as they took in the art. The office workers, the executives, the visitors, they stopped. They stared. They pointed. They smiled. They were seeing Mr. Henderson not as the invisible janitor, but as the incredible artist he was. Mr. Henderson himself stood near the entrance, looking nervous, his hands clasped tightly together. People approached him, their faces filled with wonder and admiration. They asked him questions about his art, about his process, about his secret. He answered shyly at first, but as he saw the genuine appreciation in their eyes, his confidence grew. He talked about the discarded materials he used, about the stories he tried to tell through his figures, about the joy he found in creating. Clara watched him, her heart swelling with pride and emotion. The invisible man was invisible no more. He was the center of attention, his talent finally recognized, his secret shared with the world. The emotional stakes of his decision to reveal himself had paid off in the most beautiful way possible. The exhibition was a resounding success. It was featured in local news, attracting visitors from outside the building. People were captivated by the story of the janitor with the hidden talent, the man who created beauty in secret. Mr. Henderson's art, born in a hidden room from discarded materials, resonated with people, reminding them to look beyond the surface, to see the hidden depths in everyone. Mr. Henderson continued to work as the building janitor, but his life was forever changed. He was no longer invisible. He was the building's artist, a source of inspiration and wonder. He even started holding small workshops in the atrium, teaching people how to create art from recycled materials. His hidden world had become a shared space of creativity and connection. Clara and Mr. Henderson remained friends, their bond forged in the shared secret and the journey of its revelation. Clara learned valuable lessons from Mr. Henderson about looking beyond appearances, about the power of hidden passions, about the beauty that can be found in the most unexpected places and people. The story of Mr. Henderson, the janitor who was hiding an incredible artist within him, spread far and wide, a testament to the fact that you truly never know what amazing things people are capable of, what incredible secrets they might be holding, just beneath the surface of their ordinary lives. It makes you wonder, doesn't it, about the people you encounter every day. What are they hiding? What incredible talents or stories lie beneath the surface? Mr. Henderson's story is a powerful reminder to look beyond the surface, to see the hidden depths and incredible potential in everyone around us. His journey from the invisible janitor to the celebrated artist of the building is a testament to the fact that passion and talent can flourish in the most unexpected places, and that sometimes the most extraordinary things are hidden in plain sight. What did you think of Mr. Henderson's secret? Were you surprised by what he was hiding? Have you ever encountered someone who turned out to be completely different from what you expected? Share your thoughts and stories in the comments below. We love hearing from you and reading about the amazing people you've met. If this story inspired you to look differently at the people you encounter every day, or if it reminded you to pursue your own hidden passions, please give this video a thumbs up and share it with your friends and family. Let's spread this message of looking beyond appearances and celebrating the hidden talents all around us. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our future videos, where we explore more incredible true stories of hidden heroes, unexpected talents, and the amazing things people are capable of. We've got some truly mind-blowing stories coming up that you won't want to miss. Thank you for watching, and remember, the next time you see someone who seems ordinary, take a moment to wonder, what incredible secret might they be hiding? You might just be surprised.